Hello, this is CBC Windsor News. I'm Acton Clarkin. The provincial government is proposing harsher penalties for dangerous drivers, including new police powers to suspend licenses and impound cars. The bill has been named for a father of three killed this summer by an alleged dangerous driver. Sean Jeffords has the story.
Every day is a nightmare.
Jordan Cristillo talking about life without his brother Andrew. In August, the 35-year-old father of three from Stouffville died in a crash. He and his family were hit by an alleged dangerous driver.
When you make these choices, the result of that could be an empty chair at a dining table for life. And one choice or lapse of judgment is a life sentence for a family.
Jordan was at Queen's Park as the Ford government introduced legislation to crack down on dangerous drivers. A bill he's been asking for since his brother's death, called Andrew's Law. The government says it would close gaps that allow people charged with dangerous driving offenses to stay on the road while awaiting trial.
There's no excuse, not ever, for impaired or dangerous driving. Our government will not tolerate it. We will make sure that those who endanger others face real consequences.
The proposed law would create a lifetime license suspension for anyone convicted of dangerous driving that causes a death. It would also give police the power to immediately issue a 90-day license suspension and impound the vehicle of a person believed to be driving dangerously. And it would increase fines and impoundment periods for anyone driving with a suspended license.
My brother is not dying in vain.
It comes months after Premier Doug Ford met with Cristillo's family and promised to enact the harsher penalties. The man charged with dangerous driving causing death in the crash that killed Cristillo was also facing another dangerous driving charge from an incident involving the Premier months earlier.
I told him that we'll make sure we have an Andrew's Law, that, this wasn't an accident, it was a murder.
At the end of the day,
Jordan says he hopes the law prevents other tragedies.
what I'm seeing proposed here delivers real consequences. You have people that use our roads like a racetrack, and now they'll be held accountable.
But the new bill comes at a time when the government is defending policies critics say make Ontario's streets more dangerous, like the removal of automated speed cameras earlier this month. The devices don't work, insists Ontario's transportation minister.
I think we've seen countless examples where an individual can rip through a school zone at 100+ kilometers above the posted speed limit, and they'll get a ticket 3 weeks later.
The sweeping omnibus bill doesn't just contain measures aimed at the criminal justice sector. It also has clauses which contemplate banning some scientific research involving cats and dogs. This is a plan the Premier previously announced in August. It also contains measures that contemplate a broader ban of declawing cats in Ontario. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
A local Conservative MP is joining the chorus of public criticism aimed at the Prime Minister, all after Mark Carney recently said, "Who cares?" when asked about the last time he spoke with President Trump about trade negotiations. Trump halted talks last month after the Ontario government paid for an anti-tariff TV ad that ran in the States. Carney says Canada will re-engage with the U.S. when appropriate, but this week, Windsor West's MP spoke out about this approach.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are sick of waiting. Windsor has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. Families are worried about bills, factories being idled, and a real trade war, okay? But the Prime Minister himself said, who cares? And, well, Conservatives care. Windsorites care. So when will this Prime Minister treat Windsor workers like their jobs matter and take urgent action to protect their paychecks and their families?
Since those remarks were made, the Prime Minister's office has said that Carney is weighing a trip to D.C. next week. It would be to attend an event related to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. But whether or not a meeting with President Trump would take place during that visit isn't clear. Well, Stellantis is getting the side eye from some of Canada's most powerful politicians. Annoyed and frustrated, those are just some of the words hurled by MPs in the auto giant's direction on Tuesday. Emma Loop is tracking that story.
One MP said she was speechless, another deeply concerned. Global automaker Stellantis failed to show up to a committee hearing Tuesday. The company cited technical difficulties, but it happened as controversy swirls over the company's decision to send production of a Jeep model from Brampton, Ontario to the U.S., a decision that leaves roughly 3,000 Canadian auto workers in limbo.
It's stupefying that they would not participate.
A Stellantis executive was set to appear by video conference to discuss the company's deals for up to billions in federal funding. They've been under the microscope since the company's Brampton announcement last month, with cabinet officials accusing the company of violating job provisions in the contracts. But that executive, Teresa Peruzza, never showed up over the course of the nearly 2-hour hearing.
I am incredibly annoyed that Stellantis has not been able to join us.
In a statement, Stellantis said it was ready and available to appear remotely for the committee today, but that IT issues prevented Peruzza from connecting as planned. Stellantis said the committee's IT team assisted directly, but the issue was not resolved. MPs on the committee weren't fully convinced, though.
Because when you build EVs, when you are on the cutting edge of technology, it's unbelievable that they have internet issues.
Committee members were also frustrated that a copy of one of the contracts they got was redacted and that they would need to go behind closed doors to talk details, especially since the government already released a copy of a similar deal under access to information law to CBC Windsor.
It's on the CBC website in a PDF. I was able to print it off with limited redactions. But you're suggesting that this CIF agreement 813-816251 can only be reviewed by parliamentarians in camera? The confidentiality, so we have to wait until someone makes an access to information request to see it? That's your argument?
I'm here today to talk about this contract we have with Stellantis on the Brampton plant. And under the conditions of that contract that we signed, at the end of the day, we recognize there are elements that are commercially confidential that we have to do the best we can to protect it.
The committee unanimously passed a motion to ask Stellantis to appear by next Thursday. If the company doesn't comply, the panel will issue a summons to force them to. Emma Loop, CBC News, Windsor.
A local community organization has received a $93,000 Trillium seed grant for a program for parents called Healthy Parent, Healthy Home. Video producer Mike Evans has more.
In my work with children on their own and parents on their own, I've noticed that they don't really have the skills to know how to play or know how to track with their child and figure out what their interests are, understand their personality. And so I wanted to make a very practical program that gives parents skills to do that themselves.
So now that you have the grant, it's called a seed grant from the Trillium Fund, what is that going to allow you to do?
It allowed us to actually create the curriculum with another play therapist and other professionals, and now we can give it to other agencies. We can continually run it next year. We can expand it to neighborhoods.
We started this new idea of a family program for kids, parents, bring them in, serve food, have conversations about how to connect and just ways to build their bond if they've had any kind of conflict or separation or just hurts that they've gone through in the past. We provide language talking about the different cups, inner cups that we have, which represents just the feelings, the things we've gone through, and the different needs that we have, and language to be able to talk about that together, share their needs with each other, communicate more clearly, and just support their family and build up the family through those meetings.
Time now for a peek at your forecast with weather specialist Riley Lachuk, here to fill us in on whether all this rain and fog is going to stick around.
Yeah, thanks, Acton. A bit of a soggy start to the day through southwestern Ontario, and we're not done with the unsettled weather either, as you can probably tell by the colorful map behind us here. We have a special weather statement in place for southwestern Ontario. This is as we get into the day on Wednesday and Thursday, the potential for some very strong wind gusts up to 90 kilometers an hour. Further north, though, into cottage country, this is the potential for some pretty strong snow squalls and some pretty rapid accumulation over the next couple of days. So there's that rain that pushed off. We're back into a bit of a dry slot now, but once we get into the day on Wednesday, we'll do this again. So overnight temperature around 9. We'll start the day around 10 or 11 degrees, and it falls from there. I'll have all the details when I come back.
Thanks, Riley. A new provincial bill is set to change rules around bail. It means that people accused of a crime and granted bail would have to provide a cash security deposit right up front, rather than paying later if they break those bail conditions. But as Jamie Strachan tells us, some human rights advocates say the system is flawed.
The Ford government is proposing a major change to the province's bail system.
It's time to restore law and order in this province and send a message to the criminals. Your free ride is over.
For months, Premier Ford has assailed what he calls a broken system.
These weak-kneed judges that let these people out on bail not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 and 5 times.
The government has tabled legislation that would require those accused of a crime and granted bail to pay a cash security deposit up front. Currently, money is only paid after bail conditions are breached.
I've heard directly from victims of crime, families, police officers, and community leaders who are calling for a bail system that is real, consequential, and protects the public.
Many in the legal community are already questioning the legality and effectiveness of this move.
This is going to create 2 tiers of justice, one for those who can afford to pay and another for those who can't. And that's fundamentally unfair.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Association also points out that a vast majority of space in Ontario jails is currently filled by people yet to go to trial.
As of last count, 80% of the people in Ontario prisons are in pretrial detention, and that's up from around the 20s some 50 years ago.
Many who have worked in the criminal justice system for years argue that by denying more people bail, in the long run, you may end up with more violent criminals on the street.
Detention centers are highly criminogenic. People will lose jobs, they'll lose treatment beds, they'll lose access to family, children, all sorts of things. And they'll come out of that experience a lot more dangerous than before they went in.
All of this aside, Batansky doubts this legislation would pass a constitutional test, as bail reform is part of the criminal code, which is federal jurisdiction. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Hamas and Islamic Jihad say they have returned the remains of a hostage. It would be one of the last victims from the October 7th attack to be handed over to Israel. The release of all hostages is a key aspect of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal. The CBC's Tom Perry has more from Jerusalem.
Israel now says it has received the remains of another hostage. I'm going to read you the latest posting from the Israel Defense Forces. They say that the coffin of the deceased hostage, escorted by IDF troops, crossed the border into the state of Israel and is on its way to the National Institute of Forensic Medicine, where identification procedures will be carried out. That's pretty typically what happens in these cases. Hamas hands the remains over to the Red Cross. The Red Cross hands them over to Israeli officials. They're taken to the National Forensics Lab in Tel Aviv for identification. The family's then informed, and then the name is made public sometime after that. Now, there were 3 hostages still in Gaza. They were Ran Gavili and Dror Or. Those are 2 Israelis, as well as Sudisak Rintalak, a Thai agriculture worker who was also killed on October 7th. And so right now you've got 3 families, 2 here in Israel and 1 in Thailand, waiting to see if their loved one is coming home. As this is going on, Gaza was pounded by heavy rainfall, and we've been seeing images coming out of the territory of people living in tents, just being flooded out of these makeshift shelters. The UN says that about 80% of buildings in Gaza have either been destroyed or damaged. Over 90% of residences have been either destroyed or damaged. So you've got an awful lot of people living in very precarious situations. Now, aid groups are worried about waterborne diseases. They're worried about people just losing what little they have, about their tents being washed away. And so they're really trying to prevent that. Winter is coming here. Now, it's not a Canadian winter, but it is getting colder. And if you're living in a tent, and if that tent is drenched, or if that tent is underwater, that's a pretty miserable condition to be in, and that's why aid groups are saying it's so important to keep aid and assistance flowing into Gaza to help these people who need so much. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, we'll fill you in on the challenges some Canadians are facing trying to get vaccinated against a fairly common illness. Stay with us. Canada is entering RSV season. The respiratory illness can be particularly harmful to babies. Experts say vaccine rollouts in recent years are lending a helping hand. But as Lauren Pelly tells us, it can be tough to get access to that vaccine.
Hello, what can I get for you today?
This and this and this.
Katrina Bellevance's daughter is now happy and healthy. But when she was just 7 weeks old, she suddenly couldn't stop coughing.
I could tell that she was pulling, indrawing underneath her ribs.
Her newborn was struggling to breathe.
We knew we had to get her to the hospital as soon as possible.
Bellevance's daughter was diagnosed with respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. She spent 4 days on oxygen in the hospital.
RSV might not be a household term for many families, but it is the number one cause of hospitalization year in, year out in children during their first year of life.
New data from multiple countries shows powerful monoclonal antibody shots targeting RSV are now keeping more babies out of hospital.
Over 80% effective at reducing the risk of emergency department visits due to RSV.
There are also vaccines available to mothers during pregnancy, which provide protection to newborns as well.
This marks Canada's second season rolling out these tools, but many Canadians still don't have access.
Most regions now offer publicly covered antibody shots for all babies, except for BC, Alberta, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. Meanwhile, Ontario remains the only province that publicly funds both the shot for infants and the vaccine in pregnancy.
The logistics is a more complicated thing than the science, because the science is very positive.
This infectious disease physician says access and uptake could be better. He also worries anti-vaccine sentiment might remain a roadblock.
Political wins could make it harder for us to keep tiny babies out of the hospital.
I love this one.
In Alberta, where Bellavance lives, antibody shots are only being offered this year to high-risk infants. The province told CBC News a cost-effectiveness analysis is being done before next season.
I think it should be accessible.
Bellavance is hopeful more kids will get the protection her daughter didn't have. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Thomas King has long been celebrated for his work as an Indigenous author in Canada, including for his best-known book, An Inconvenient Indian. But King says he's now learned a surprising truth about his heritage. Griffin Yeager has more.
He built his career telling Indigenous stories, and now Thomas King, in an op-ed published by the Globe and Mail, says he is not Indigenous and has no Cherokee ancestry, despite believing he did all his life. The American Canadian received numerous awards in this country for writing about Indigenous life. Here he is in 1993 talking about his book, Green Grass Running Water.
In Green Grass Running Water, I'm looking at forming my world, that world that I see, around more native models.
King maintains that he did not pretend to have Indigenous roots and thought it was true. He says he was 3 when his father left, and though his mother rarely spoke of him, she said he was part Cherokee. King says he'd heard rumors questioning his indigeneity, and this year made an effort to check. This brought him to the Tribal Alliance Against Frauds. That's an organization that investigates claims of Indigenous ancestry, which looked into his past and found no Cherokee heritage. In his Globe and Mail article, King writes, "At 82, I feel as though I've been ripped in half, a one-legged man in a two-legged story." Indigenous writer Jesse Wente took to his social media to share that this is a familiar hurt.
This should have been taken care of long ago, and I don't know, I can't speak to why people don't resolve these own issues if they're going to represent themselves in ways publicly.
Look out, Bob shouts. There are Indians flying into the skyscrapers and falling on the sidewalk. Got a Mohawk over here.
Others are saying people should take greater care in checking their roots before claiming Indigenous heritage.
It's easy to verify too. So, looking back on Thomas King's claims, perhaps he let it slide for too long and it had hardened.
King says that he hopes to keep supporting Indigenous causes, but he's not sure they'll want to stand beside him now. Griffin Yeager, CBC News, Toronto.
Still to come, a full look at your weekly forecast. Will we get an end to all of this gray outside? Those details are next. It was a bit soggy out there on Tuesday. My shoes were sinking into the grass earlier. But Riley Lachuk is here with your full forecast.
Well, thanks, Acton. I mean, temperature-wise, a pretty pleasant day out there, aside from the rain. I mean, temperature is still above seasonal by several degrees for this time of the year. So Windsor, 10 degrees, Chatham-Kent, 11 this afternoon, 8s and 9s through the rest of the region. So another pretty pleasant fall day if you're just looking at the temperatures. I know it's been a bit wet out there, though. Things are changing, and we're getting into what will feel closer to late November, early December temperature in the coming days. That's all courtesy of this area of low pressure that's been spinning through the Dakotas into Minnesota, pushing into parts of Illinois, into the Midwest. And as we get into the day on Wednesday, we'll get the first round of this pushing through. I mean, not as heavy of a rain as we saw earlier in the day, but we will get into some rain first thing in the morning. A few showers is what I'm calling it through the day. But the feature tomorrow will be this cold front that swings through in behind this. And this does a couple of things. First, shifts our winds around, picks up the winds as we get through the day tomorrow, and then in some cases introduces some flurries or even some lake effect snow as we get later Wednesday into Thursday, particularly on sort of the northern fringes of Lake Erie, where we could get into some accumulating snow, for example. So this particular forecast model indicating as we get into Thursday the potential for some scattered flurries in behind this. But the story tomorrow certainly will be the winds as we advance into the afternoon hours, looking at gusts picking up 60 to 70 kilometers an hour out of the southwest. And the wind will stay relatively strong as we get into the day on Thursday before tapering off. And then we introduce a bit of a new air mass in behind this, and you'll see what I mean. Looking at our upper level winds, as we get into the day on Thursday, you can see this big trough starting to develop in the jet stream. And that is going to allow some very, very cold Arctic air to push right across central Canada through the U.S. Midwest, even into parts of Atlantic Canada. But really, parts of the prairies will be into some very cold air as well as we get through the next several days here. So looking at your long range, we'll start the day around the region tomorrow around 9-10 degrees with some scattered showers first. And then as that cold front swings through, we'll fall to maybe 4 or 5 degrees by the time we get into the afternoon. And then some much cooler air comes in behind this, closer to freezing for Thursday, Friday, a persistent chance of some flurries as we get through the end of the week, Acton. And then we introduce another chance of flurries or some mixing as we get later into the weekend as well.
Thank you, Riley. That's our show. Thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.